The Jazz are now open to trading Donovan Mitchell. I think we knew this could be happening at some point, but here we are. Danny Ainge remaking this Utah Jazz roster. Keith, initial thoughts before we start diving into all the ripple effects of this.
Again, this is not overly surprising. I think when Danny Ainge took over, we had a sense of he might tear this thing all the way to the ground if they don't succeed in this year's playoffs. They did not. And then the Rudy Gobert trade, that was step one. And then it was, maybe they won't trade Mitchell. Then there were some comments by Justin Zanuck, who's actually the general manager of the team. He works directly beneath Ainge. We heard him say, well, we'll never say never, and things change in the NBA, and a lot of like, I'm not going to tell you we won't trade him because I don't want to hear it if we do trade him. And now here we are, report from Woj this afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, that yes, they are listening to trade offers on Donovan Mitchell and not just shutting everyone down. I'm going to read between the lines a little bit and say there might be a Donovan Mitchell trade coming here relatively soon, because otherwise, why would that even get reported, right?
Right. Right. That's true. Now here's the thing, right? I mean, the Kevin Durant trade market has a Rudy Gobert problem right now, or a Minnesota Timberwolves problem, more accurately, in which a lot of the NBA saw what the Wolves paid for Rudy Gobert, went, oh my gosh, they overpaid. What were they doing? Is the same thing going to hold true for Donovan Mitchell, where teams, the Nets are expecting more than Rudy Gobert for Kevin Durant, and that's the problem because teams around the NBA are saying that's an outlier. The Wolves messed up. We're not paying that. Are the Jazz going to expect the same kind of return for Donovan Mitchell, and could that likewise stall out his trade market?
It could. You could also look at it as the Jazz say, hey, we already got the monster
Sure.
return and number of picks and all that, and we don't need necessarily that. Maybe they look for more value picks, in that sense or something along those lines. I think now they put themselves in play to say, hey, Brooklyn, if you're making a Durant trade, maybe we get involved. Not that they would get KD, but maybe we can get involved and we can, look at this as some kind of a bigger trade package. DeAndre Ayton's still sitting out there. We heard yesterday maybe headed to the Pacers. That's another possibility that we could see. So I think what this does is just basically opens the door for, hey, there's all sorts of ways we can go. And because they already got that massive pick haul from the Timberwolves, maybe they don't need a million draft picks in a Mitchell trade. Maybe it's more player centric. Maybe it's they send us a couple younger guys who are a little bit ready to go right now, and we go from there.
Now, if the Jazz do move Mitchell, does that signal a larger rebuild? And then what does that mean for everybody else on the there's a lot of veterans on this roster. Does that in theory put everybody on the trade market?
Yeah, I think it probably does. I think right. You have then Bogdanovich is somebody I think a lot of teams would like to
Right.
grab. Maybe Mike Conley. We'll see. I don't know where his value sits overall. Jordan Clarkson, if you're really looking for a bench score, then you got all the guys they just got from the Wolves. They certainly don't need a lot of them, right? Patrick Beverly, Malik Beasley. I would assume they'd probably keep Jared Vanderbilt, right? He's young enough that you could use him in whatever you're going to build up next. But yeah, I think at that point you do start really opening yourself to, all right, let's look at some other stuff here because what do we need all these guys who are on shorter term veteran contracts? That's not necessarily going to help us moving forward. Let's look to move those guys out. And then you really at that point you're looking for, hey, you want to give us 2 seconds for Jordan Clarkson? Okay, like let's go. A young player for Bogdanovich. Okay, good. We're gonna go and move that direction. So that's my guess is they're gonna if they move Mitchell, yeah, start trading the other guys too. Because what's the point in hanging on to them?
Could this break up some of the gridlock, suddenly having this interest in the Jazz and the Jazz making it known that Donovan Mitchell is on the market potentially, as well as all their other players that they've got on the roster?
Yeah, it could. I kind of look at it as it's almost like having a bit of a clogged pipe. And once you get that first initial clog pushed through, then everything starts flowing right behind it. Now that may be the way we see this go. We may see this, be the thing that kind of comes down the pipe and bust through that clog and off it goes. We may see that. And what you might have too is, right, we've heard not that there will be a Jazz Nets direct trade. We already did see one. We saw Royce O'Neal go there. But we did hear, the Nets don't have a lot of interest in rebuilding when they trade Durant and Irving. Maybe they get involved and say, all right, hey, the salary matching's a little difficult. All right, what if we sent you Bogdanovich and Conley or something like that? And then there's the salary, that's we'll get involved and we'll take back a player, somewhere from another team. Could that be a way they jump in, and could they help in a Westbrook trade? But you're acquiring him as the contract versus the player, because then maybe you just buy him out if you're Utah and say, all right, go. And, even if you're not getting a huge, give back, fine. Doesn't really matter, because, what's the difference? So that it definitely does open up all sorts of opportunity and ways to do different things here, because now you might have the Jazz involved in things they might not have been involved in a day or two ago.
Right. It changes the status quo. So we could see this shake things. I mean, this could, we don't know all the ripple effects, but this could lead to a Kevin Durant trade. Like you said, maybe this is something that allows the Jazz to get in and be a team that absorbs some salary. If particularly they've made the decision that, we're not going to push to contend this year. We're not going to try to make the playoffs this year. We're going to join the Spurs in the tank race, and we're going to try to get future assets. Maybe that does open things up a little bit, because there's not that many teams right now that are looking to go that route. So from a Jazz perspective, I think that there's some interesting possibilities here for the future if they do move off of Donovan Mitchell. I think from the NBA perspective, this gives a shot in the arm to the flickering embers of the offseason. I mean, fans were starting to check out because they were tired of waiting on this Durant thing and everything else to go on. But now, this
could be get told over and over, like, this going to training camp. And,
yeah, exactly.
And you start to say, all right, I'm going to move on to, baseball and getting ready for the football season. Like,
right.